Hello, hello. Welcome back to Mentally a Badass. Today, we're thrilled to have Dave Mowry, a man who's found light in the darkest of places, a best selling author of the OMG That's Me series, a blogger with over 1 million reads, and a stand up comic. Dave has turned his personal battles with severe mental illness, homelessness, and hospitalization into a mission to shatter stigma, one joke at a time. He even teaches others how to use comedy to heal. Stay tuned for an inspirational conversation that reminds us all that healing is not only possible, but can be found in laughter. So, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Justine, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. And I'm super excited to interview you because, most importantly, Mentally Badass is all about being relatable and we add a lot of humor to it. If you look at like our Instagram, like the reels, like some of it can be literally comical. So when I found you on PodMatch and I read your bio and what you're all about, I'm like, oh my God, I found somebody who thinks like me, you know? So I was like, yes, I like messaged you like literally the first second I like actually opened my account. And I was like, okay, this is awesome. So anyway, so let's get into it. So I see that you took a comedy class, and that is kind of like when you decided to go into comedy. So actually, wait, let's back it up a little bit. So you are diagnosed with bipolar, correct?
Yeah, bipolar and severe anxiety.
Okie dokie. Do you know if it's bipolar 1 or 2?
I get the numbers mixed up, but I have mania and depression. I think that's one, I think. I'm not sure.
No worries. Yeah, so 1 is it's more manic, and it could,
Okay.
yeah, and then bipolar 2 is more depression.
Yeah, probably more depression.
Yeah.
And the
So that,
depression lasts a lot longer and goes a lot deeper, but the manic is a lot more fun. So I wish it would last longer. But
yeah,
I always get in trouble with the mania, so it's probably good it doesn't last that long.
yeah. So based off of what you're saying, it sounds more like bipolar 2, but I'm not a therapist or anything like that or a psychiatrist. Just this is more my personal experience.
Sure.
But yeah, I totally get that. Like the hypomania, it's like you feel happy enough and like motivational, but it's not to the point where you start gonna like do illegal things or anything like that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no.
totally
Yeah.
understand that. When were you diagnosed with bipolar?
It wasn't it wasn't until like 1995 or 96. I'd had it and I'd had the highs and lows and I was seeing a psychiatrist for the depression.
Mhm.
But when I went in and I was hypomanic or manic, I was feeling good and so there was no obvious outside. I mean, the depression was under control and everything was great. So it was really, I recognized the symptoms and what was happening. And so I brought it up to the psychiatrist, and then we worked through it. And that's when I was officially diagnosed. It took a long time. And that at that point, we started treating the bipolar disorder, and that started to make a difference.
Was it more of like you said it was the manic or depression? I do apologize. Which one
Well,
stood out?
yeah, the depression, when I went in and I was depressed, it was obvious. I was morose and
Yeah.
monotone and all those things, and no
Uh-huh.
motivation. When I was hypomanic or manic, I felt good and everything was fine, and I just talked and there was no depression. So, it looked good, but we treated the depression, but we didn't do the mania. And some of the depression medications I took triggered the mania.
Mm.
And, it's always started with the hypermania. It was, like you said, it's great. It's
Mhm.
kind of like this flight above the clouds. You're feeling good. You're creative and all those different things. But mine always went higher and higher until it was out of control. And I took a lot of risks and, made mistakes. And yeah, those are my depression is I have regrets. My regrets with the depression are for the things I didn't do, and my regrets for the mania are for the things I did do.
Were you said here that you were hospitalized. Was it because of the mania?
It was because of the depression. I just went into a deep, deep, dark depression, and it lasted for forever. My wife, it was everything I could do to get out of bed. It was everything I could do if I did get out of bed, just to sit on the couch. I couldn't take a shower. I didn't, too depressed to shower. I didn't shower for, like, a few months at a time, maybe 3 months. Yeah, I'd sleep in my clothes, and because there's no point in taking them off and then putting them back on in the morning. I'd sleep in my clothes. I couldn't go to the mailbox because of the anxiety, and I was so depressed. But I couldn't see anybody, the neighbors, or talk to them. It was too much for me. And so I would go to the mailbox at night to get the mail because I knew then I wouldn't see anybody and have to talk to anybody. So yeah, the depression was she said, it's time to go. And she took me to St. Vincent's Hospital, and they checked me in, and I spent time there. I needed to be there. It was a place I could get some peace of mind and relief, but it didn't last long enough. But one of the interesting things about being in the hospital is once I did relax and my mind cleared a bit, I came up with some jokes. And that's kind of what led me into taking the stand-up comedy class in the first place, because I came up with some jokes from the psych unit, and I thought, those were funny.
Mhm.
And then I saw the comic that came down and was going to teach a stand-up comedy class, and he did his set. And I thought, well, I'm as funny as he is. And yeah, I must have been hypomanic or something at that point. I know I wasn't totally depressed at that point because I wouldn't do it. But then I took the class and changed.
Yeah, that's actually like such a unique story. And also just like finding like jokes within your darkness. And a lot of people may not understand why, like some people can be like, oh, it's why are you joking about this? Like mental health is very serious, which it is, but also laughter is like the greatest medicine. And then also like I believe that here and there having jokes is such a great coping mechanism. And you were saying that it potentially could have been like manic when you were having these jokes, but I've had those feelings as well, but I don't necessarily think it can be maybe partial. Then again, like I said, I'm not a professional, but it helps a lot with depression. And like moments if I'm just going through something difficult, I always have to like laugh or be sarcastic or anything like that. And sometimes I would, if I'm like very uncomfortable, have a lot of anxiety, I'll like chuckle, and it may look inappropriate to some people. Like I've gotten in trouble like when I used to work like in the corporate world and such.
Yeah.
But they didn't like in the meetings, they didn't know. It was actually they just called on me for something like in a meeting, and then I don't know, I was laughing about something. I have no idea what it was. Then I got it then I got in
Yeah.
trouble. And you know what the
Yeah.
crazy thing is too is that leader that I have, we're like really good friends now. And then I told her like the whole like my side of it, and she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I didn't like mean to, I didn't know. I'm like, no, you're fine. I don't expect you to know my mental health like when we were, in a work relationship. But it could be challenging for people to understand why we do that. Like we're not jerks. We just like it's just a big nice coping mechanism. And then actually my therapist says apparently I laugh in stressful situations because I'm disconnected from my emotions. I'm like, I am? I didn't even think of that. I was like, I guess if you like feel uncomfortable, you go straight to laughter because it feels you want to feel joy.
Yeah.
So that makes sense with the whole like comedy class and such. So if you remember, what do you remember like a particular joke that you can share that kind of like made you think, oh, like I want to do this. Like I want to hear a joke right
But
now.
well, the simple one, I mean, when I was in the psych unit, the simple one, and so when I was in the psych unit, I realized why they keep the doors locked.
Mhm.
Because there's so many people trying to get in. So instead of locking the doors for people not being able to, so they couldn't get out, they kept the doors locked because there were so many people trying to get in.
I think I kind of get what you're saying.
Yeah. So that was the first one. And then, I've got, having taken the class, written jokes, performed, and then taught the stand-up comedy class to other folks with mental illness. There's dozens of jokes and you mentioned the jokes and going there, the jokes I tell and the people I teach tell, we're telling our story one joke at a time. It's about us. It's not about other people. And the feedback has never been negative. It's people who live with a mental illness are relieved and they laugh because they're laughing at themselves too, because they've had these experiences. And the people that are families and friends, they realize it's okay to laugh and they laugh. And it's just a huge relief. It's a huge release. Finding the humor in the dark days and the hard times, it's a great coping mechanism. It's helped me so much. I used to be an example of the PTSD from the trauma. I'd be driving down the street and I'd hear a song from a particular time and it would trigger the PTSD from a trauma that I had. And I'd relive it. I'd go back to it and I'd have the anxiety attack, maybe a panic attack, just going back and thinking about that experience. And then when I took comedy class, when I had that trigger, that thought, that song came on, I'd think, okay, where can I find the humor in that? And it changed everything. It took me from going down that path to reliving that experience and having that anxiety attack and all that pain and suffering, and took me to a different place, a different thought. And the PTSD lifted significantly. I'd have a PTSD attack 5, 6, 7 times a day. It was consistent. It was awful. But after learning the comedy and trying to find the humor in these experiences, it reduced it way down. And now it's, I have thoughts, but no triggers particularly. And I don't go and relive those experiences.
I really love that you share that, because that actually is some great advice to help heal from trauma and triggers. I actually had a person before you that we were talking about PTSD as part of the conversation, and she said she did EMDR, and what it helped her was that whatever she had to go through the traumatic event and have those feelings, but what the therapist did was reframe it and like change the narrative and how the ending was, and that helped her so much. And now like I just feel like that's such good advice, and I'm so happy I learned that from you. And then I also think like I feel like I like kind of do that but don't realize it. An example I have that I like to share on like TikTok a couple years ago, like I got like this hate comment that said that they wanted me to wrap a rock around my ankle and throw myself a bridge. And
Nice.
every time I say that, I go into like do you see my reaction to that?
Oh, yeah.
So at first, when it actually happened, I did cry, but I also had a bad work day. So it kind of like was both at the same time. Like I just got off the phone with like a really mean guest who was like bullying me, being so nasty with me, right? And then I clocked out for work, and then I looked at my phone, open up TikTok, and I see that comment. And so I'm just like, and I just start bawling my eyes. And then after that, like obviously then I go from, I try to like my best to not let hate comments get to me. And I've been doing well. I've been really taking advantage of blocking people. Like I love that block button. So so that was an example. And when I told that story, I had an episode about online trolls, and when I had a guest with me, I was telling her like my experience, and then I was laughing. And then she was like, "Wait, why are you laughing? That's a horrible experience." And I was like, "I don't know. I guess I just make jokes about my trauma or something like that."
Yeah.
And
I mean, you look at these things, they can tear you down, or you can laugh. And if you're able to laugh at them and find the humor in it, that's just a blessing. That's so much better.
And it's also just like obviously way better than like being angry. Like sometimes when I see comments and it's just not nice or just ridiculous, usually get so angry. But now like I have to realize, you can't change the way people are, like some people are just not like nice, and then they go on like this Threads app went from really positive, people helping each other and caring, and then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened. There was a huge switch, and now people are like bullying each other on it, and I'm just like, okay, I don't want to go on this app anymore, which is sad because I really liked it. I actually found PodMatch through Threads. Like I asked people for advice, like for guests and this and that, and then they're like, oh, check out PodMatch. It's like Tinder but for podcasters.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, oh, okay. So I Googled it, checked it out, and I was like, oh. So I'm like, oh, so this is how it works. I put my profile, I put exactly what my podcast is, and then I put like what I'm looking for. It's interesting. So on dating apps, you put what you're looking for. And you tell me the past or oh my God. So cool. It's literally just like Tinder, but for podcasters. So that really benefited. And I felt like it was a safe place because people were just so kind. I don't know what happened. I don't know if there was like a crowd of people that was just. Anyway, moving on from that.
Yes.
So let's talk about. So are you doing the comedy shows like like often, like full time? What does your
Not
days
full
look like?
time. Yeah, I am co-executive director at a NAMI affiliate. I don't know if you're familiar with NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, and they've got
Believe so.
800 affiliates around the country. It's the largest grassroots mental health organization. So I manage a facility, an affiliate. So I
Uh-huh.
do that. I don't do that full time. I also write, and I've been doing. Somehow I got found, and I've been doing a lot of podcasts. I think it's a combination of being mentally ill, homeless, having lost everything, and then coming back and then finding comedy and doing. It's such an odd thing. But and then I also do the comedy. I also teach the classes. So I'm doing a lot of different things and working on a couple new books. So there are all these different pieces, and it's yeah. I think I'm having a lot of fun doing all these different things. Nothing is like work.
Yeah.
Nothing is like work. It's all good, and it's all creative, and it's all got a purpose. So yeah. You were talking about the reply that they wanted you to tie a
Mhm.
rock around your leg and jump off a bridge.
Mhm.
And suicide's never funny,
Mhm.
except when it is. So can I tell you one of my favorite jokes?
Yeah.
Okay. And when things were really, really bad in my darkest days, I decided to end it all. So I went up into the bathroom and I took a bunch of pills. Afterwards, I called my wife for help. She said there are more pills under the sink. She's very helpful.
That's horrible.
I know, isn't that great? And
When you
it
said that, I
takes a
was
minute,
waiting for you
doesn't it?
to say something else, and I was like,
Yeah, that's it.
it's
That's it.
suicide awareness.
I know it is. But I've told the response when I tell that joke on stage or wherever has been so amazingly positive because I think, from my experience, just about everybody that lives with bipolar disorder has had suicidal ideation at some point in time. And in the comedy classes that I teach, we go wherever things go, and no topic is off base. So people talk about suicide and their suicide ideation, and people aren't going to act on it, but they've thought about it, and when there's a joke about it, which is like you can't joke about suicide. It's not funny. But then when there's a joke, and it's a huge relief, release, unexpected, and oftentimes people say that's their favorite joke. I've never had anybody come up to me and say, you shouldn't say that.
That's good.
Performed at the Helium Comedy Club here in town. We had 185 people. It was packed, and doing our comedy, and nothing but good things. And there's a bunch of jokes. The suicide joke is one of my favorites because it's one of the edgiest.
Yeah.
It's the one that okay, it's never funny except when it is. I also taught a class at the Oregon State Hospital, and it was for people who were had committed crimes but were in the hospital, criminally insane. So I taught a comedy class to criminally insane at the state hospital. And one of the fellas there was just obsessed with suicide. He couldn't stop thinking about it and ruminating about it. He was in there. And we came up with a suicide joke for him. And instead of when he thought about suicide after that, instead of thinking about, okay, how am I going to do it? He thought about the joke and the punchline. And then he thought, okay, where can I find another punchline? Where can I find another joke in my suicidal ideation? Changed his life. But if I can share his joke, because I know he'd like me to share it, when he had terrible suicide ideation and thought about killing himself all the time, but now when he sees himself jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge, he's wearing a floaty. So he's gotten a lot better than he used to be. I know.
That was a good one.
Yeah,
That
there's
was a
more.
good one.
Trust me, there's more. But I think you can see where the humor,
Yeah.
and me, everything's based in truth. I mean, I had suicidal ideation. I had a point in time where it was serious contemplation. And so then to take the suicide and my experience and have that being the front end and then the creative part and having it be a joke, it's my story. So I don't tell stories about other people. I don't make fun of anybody. It's all true. It's all based in truth. And so it works. It works. I can tell jokes, obviously, that other people can't because it would be definitely inappropriate. But,
Yeah. It's all about like how you say, like the thing with the floaty, like that was just like, I literally started like dying of laughter. Like that was
Yeah.
a really good one. And then the pills one. The pills one's also is like you kind of made a joke of yourself in a way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
where it's kind of like seen more like socially acceptable. I wanted to say I don't. It's not really like much of a joke, but more of like humor. I used to work. Have you been to Epcot by any chance?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know Test Track. I used to work on that ride for like yeah,
Okay.
right. And then that ride that ride is actually very stressful to work on. It's very high stress for the cast members. So like we will get like times when we'll get like mistreated by guests, and we're just tired working a lot of overtime, and it's just you're under a lot, and we kind of all are like trauma bonding in a way, or just like there for each other. But we all like collectively made a joke being like, oh, can someone just push me into the track now, like just kind of
Yeah.
like over it. I'll be like, come on,
Yeah.
just throw me in there, like I'm ready. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
all
Yeah.
of us were doing that just because we all are like in the same position.
Yeah.
So that was like one thing. And then this is one thing I did. I got it on camera because I actually told someone to film me. Cause I noticed that I was waiting on hold to get in touch with my like psychiatrist, and it was just taking forever. Like, you know how sometimes when you try to get in touch with people and it's just like you're on like hold for a million years and then you have to like do it again, and it's like annoying. And then during that time frame of my life, I had so many bad things constantly keep happening to me, like bad thing after bad thing after bad thing after bad thing, that I was mentally exhausted. And that's when I had to like go back on my medication because it was getting really dark again.
Yeah.
So I'm like having a hard time getting access to this medication with all of just this world, you know how it can be rough sometimes. So I was literally waiting on hold for like, actually, I think maybe I was waiting on hold with either Walgreens or my psychiatrist. It was somebody with my medication, and it was just taking so long. And I was just kind of like this, like half out of it, and I was like, throw me off a bridge, like
Yeah.
shoot, like through, like I was like,
Yeah.
please, just like like it.
Yeah.
It was funny
Put
just
me out of my
because like if you
misery.
watch
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it was funny. And then like my friend, because at first I was doing it not realizing it, and then I told my friend, I was like, this is actually a good mentally a badass video for like our reels, and I was like, let's just reenact this right now. And I did
Yeah.
that, and then I recorded my friend. She was like, Justine, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, what? I'm just wait. Yeah, I gotta like it's
Yeah.
hilarious, but I have to find that humor in there. And my last video that I posted, the song that was on it was, oh God, I hate singing, so I'm not gonna sing. But the lyrics is like, "I had some help," blah da 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 da. It's a song, and then my living room was actually like a mess at the time because I have like ADHD and then depression and such, and you know, like when you're depressed, everything just goes all over the place. And so
Yeah.
I made a joke where I was just like dancing to the song, and like it had like the mess in the background. And then it's like when you live with like a depressed ADHD girly or something like that. And then I put in the caption, and I was like, I'll clean it up when I'm manic. And then I put sorry, and I put like my boyfriend's handle.
That's great. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. And then like but you know it's crazy that when I was like playing that song and I was just doing like sometimes I just film content just to film content, and then later on I'll figure out some type of
Yeah.
joke. And
Yeah.
then so when I was doing that, I didn't realize I saw in the background the mess in my living room. And usually people will be like, oh crap, it's a mess, let me refilm this. I was
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
can use this to my advantage.
Yeah. That's
It just
great.
yeah, so and it's true. Like I'm like one of those people like with ADHD that'll have like 5 cups sitting at once, and my boyfriend always makes fun of me. He's like, Justine, it's like we have no cups now because you keep leaving them all in the same like room, and you don't yeah. That's totally a thing. But that's like I'm saying that I like how I connected with you because I don't think I've ever really connected with somebody who focused more on like the humor aspect of, you know, the healing and such. Did you have Instagram listed on your account? I don't remember.
I don't. I don't.
Okay, I want you to check out the Instagram.
I
My
will.
Instagram.
I
Yeah, I feel
will.
like I mean, some of
I
it's,
definitely will.
yeah, some of it's funny and some of it's depressing. It's kind of either or.
Yeah. Yeah.
That does well because it's like what does well is when you like really grab emotion. So either people are just laughing or like they're like, oh, you know. So
Hmm.
yeah, I can go on with the amount of like, oh gosh, I can tell you so many of them that I do, but that's what kind of like got me what set my mental health brands aside from a lot of other mental health brands. Oh my gosh, I should tell you, how did I miss this part? Mentally Bad is also a clothing line, so we have an apparel brand. And
Okay.
the stuff that we like, okay, so one of the shirts says, I may be smiling, but I'm dead inside, but I'm still dead inside. So I have that on one shirt. And then another shirt, we have Sad Gen Zer and Sad Millennial. like just as a joke, like, oh yeah, we're
Nice. Yeah,
sad.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then another one we have, okay, that's not, I'm trying to think of what is like something that like most people are scared to wear because of like the joke. So I'm trying to think of one of the designs because we have a lot of designs.
yeah.
But yeah, there's some humor in there. Oh my gosh, I should tell you the Halloween ones that we're doing. That they're actually pretty funny. So one is nothing scares me more than my brain. And then one is like this planet is bad for my mental health. And then it's like a graphic of like us going into an alien ship and just leaving.
Nice, nice,
Yeah. So yeah, that's
nice.
like a huge part of the brand is like the humor, like in the darkest moment, and it's super fun, but also I have to like always try to keep in mind so I don't get canceled on the internet, being like,
Yeah,
oh, she's so insensitive or something like
yeah.
that. Like it's not the first time it's happened to me. Sometimes I'll ask like uncomfortable questions, which comes from a genuine place, and then people will like think I'm a jerk, but
Well,
so how you
there's always,
perceive it.
yeah, there's always going to be haters.
Oh yeah.
They're just there's are and just got to let it go. I have a T-shirt. My wife got a T-shirt. It was years and years and years ago, but the T-shirt said, "My next husband will be normal," and she'd wear it. We'd be together.
I love
Sometimes
that.
people say, aren't you offended by that? And I said, no, it's a joke.
It is. And it's
Yeah,
like sometimes people
yeah,
just get like offended very easily. And like I like to of course be understanding because some everyone's brain works differently. So there's always a reason why people react a certain way. So I would hate to be like, oh, they're always so sensitive because I know everyone's brain just operates differently. Okay, one of
yeah,
the shirts that I have says just a ball of anxiety.
yeah,
So I pulled up my the website just because I wanted to, yeah, remember. Okay, those are like the funny ones, but then one is like then we have some that is like empowering. So one says I'm not lazy, I'm just surviving, and then one is all I want this year is sleep, and that's actually what I'm wearing right now. All I want this year is sleep.
yeah,
The ones that's actually like pretty popular is the number one popular one is I'm not lazy, I'm just surviving. And it makes sense because I feel like people are sick of being called lazy all the time.
oh yeah,
When in reality it's like if people are depressed, it's physically hard to actually do what you got to do, and you obviously you know that. And it feels
yep,
like a huge weight on your brain, and it's like it's like a heavy weight and you just can't like move. It feels almost like literally like impossible. Like I had it so bad at one time where I would like not show up to work. I would sleep till 6 p.m. I couldn't even like make it to the kitchen. So I had to order
yep,
like food, or I had at one point I
yep.
wouldn't even eat, only eat one meal a day, and I would literally have emergency Cheez-Its at the end of my bed.
Yeah, I hear you.
Emergency Cheez-Its.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I hear you. I mean, you've been there. We're fellow travelers. I understand completely what you're saying. And you can't. People think, okay, snap out of it or get out of it or whatever. It's
Oh, I
just
hate
you
that
can't.
snap out of it.
I know. You can't. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like we don't try. We're trying every day, and we're doing our best. And this is our best. I mean, maybe our best is, getting up at 6 o'clock, or maybe our best is doing something, one thing. If there's one thing that's accomplished in a day, no matter how small, it's success. It is so deep and so dark and so hard. Yeah, and then I I have a joke, another joke. Has to do with depression and mania. One of the things where during my dark days, I never knew which me was going to wake up in the morning,
Mm.
the manic me or the depressed me, but I finally figured it out because when I was depressed, I'd do everything I could just to get out of bed, and when I was manic, I did everything I could to get my wife into bed.
Get your
So
And just from someone who has a diagnosis of bipolar, I know exactly what you mean.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
Oh
The
my.
mania and the hypersexuality, and so yeah, I mean,
That is hilarious. And these are all jokes that like I didn't even like that would go through my head. I thought it
yeah,
was
yeah,
funny,
yeah.
but really you're the pro here. You're the professional.
Well, I think one of the things that makes it work for me is I think my jokes are funny, and that helps. I'm not trying to make other people laugh. I'm telling, and people laugh. Just the way it works out in the setting. But I like my jokes, and I know they're funny, and so I never get nervous when I go out. I look forward to it. So being an expert, I think one of the things that I try to instill in people is, we all have our own sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really it's important for us to like our jokes. We write our jokes for ourselves. We don't write them for other people.
True.
We write them about the more challenges you've had in life, the more material you have for jokes. And
Yes.
you've got material. I've got a lot of material. And if one can, and that's what I do, is help people change that pathway in their brain to just say, where can I find the humor in that? And just saying that, just thinking about that changes things. And then if you can come up, there's rules, there's ways, there's parts of humor, there's a lesson to be taught about how you come up with it, how you do it, and the structure and things like that. But just asking the question, where can I find the humor? And that changes it. And then if you can look for some humor and find it, it doesn't matter if it's other people think it's funny. It doesn't matter if you ever tell anybody if you find it funny. It is so healing and so great. And just for me, if I think something is funny, other people do too. I don't think everything's funny.
Mm.
So, but if I think it's funny, other people do too. So knowing that, it gives me the freedom, the license to just go anywhere and do anything. You were talking about the medication, and I have a medication joke I'll share. One of the side effects when I started taking meds was weight gain, and true to form, I gained 30 pounds. So I decided to do something about it. I joined a fitness club, and I started working out. I started doing the treadmill. And then it didn't take long for me to realize the treadmill was perfect exercise for someone with a mental illness, because you do the same thing over and over and over again, and you never get anywhere. And then the other day I was working out, and the guy next to me looked over and he said, "You're not going very fast." I said, "That's okay. My mind's racing." I
I
know.
love this. I love how we're getting a
So
nice
it
comedy
covers
show.
medicine, side effects. I mean, just, mind racing, the anxiety. Anxiety for me was so bad, so bad. The mania would come and go. The depression would, come and go, at least for a while. But the anxiety was always there. It was constant, and it was so bad. It was awful. I'd have panic attacks. I think one of the things about my story is, that people talk about acceptance of living with a mental illness, and I think that's important, but it's also important to have acceptance without resignation, without giving up and saying, this is where I'm going to be. This is as good as it gets. So I just kept trying. I just kept trying, even though when I'd have a panic attack, and I took a college class, and I had a panic attack when I was there, and I was sitting out in front of a building waiting for my wife to pick me up, and I was just done. I sat down on the sidewalk. I knew that if she didn't come, I wasn't getting it. I was just done. And she was late, but she got there. The anxiety and the panic attacks. And then we were driving. It was toward downtown Portland, and we were driving, and I saw people on the sidewalk, and homeless people, and I realized, that without my wife, that'd be me. I mean, I could relate, I could understand. I didn't have a negative thought. I didn't have, I had none of those things. It was just like, I get it. And that would be me. So, and my wife's the hero of my story. How many wives are going to stay with you when you have it all, and then you lose it all and go hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and have a mental illness, and in the psychiatric unit 14 years and not being able to work, and 14 last years, and she stayed with me, and she's the hero of my story. If she hadn't have done that, like I said, I'd be on the street, or I'd be in a single room occupancy, a hotel in Old Town, and that's where I know that's where I'd be. But she stayed with me and supported me, and yeah.
That's
So
beautiful.
here I am.
When I've had like a couple people say the same about like how if they didn't have their significant other, like where they would be. Like, if you listen to the whole PTSD episode, he mentions
Yeah,
his fiance
yeah,
and such. So
yeah,
and it's also, I feel like it could be so challenging to find like the one who, gets in, is willing to stick around, because like, I'm not married or anything like that, but I've had my fair share of like long relationships where they got out once they had to really deal with me,
yeah,
I guess. And
yeah,
it's even sadder when like I'm upfront. Like when I date people, I'm like, if they, they want to date me and such, I literally tell them straight up. I was like, well, I have bipolar disorder. Like, I just want to make you aware of this because I feel like that's important before you get into a relationship with me because you're going to have to see the episodes or, like, and then usually they say, oh yeah, no, I get it, or this, or blah, blah, blah. And they just think it's like one person said, oh, my uncle has bipolar. And in my head, I want to say, well, having an uncle and having a significant other are two completely different
Yeah,
things,
yeah,
unless you're like
yeah.
your uncle lives with you.
Yeah. Dating your uncle. Yeah.
True. Yeah, because like a
Yeah.
lot of these dark episodes happen behind doors.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, no, he couldn't deal with it. And then there was another one who literally broke up with me because of that reason,
Yeah.
because of my mental health,
Yeah.
which is super sad. It like already sucks as it is, like what we have to go through. And it's like people just don't want to deal with us. It's so ridiculous because it's like now it makes us even darker and it makes us think that no one wants to deal with us. And then now when people
Yeah.
commit suicide, they think that they're alone, which
Yeah.
is, it's horrible. But luckily right now I have a long-term boyfriend, 2.5 years, that accepts all of my episodes. Like I feel bad sometimes because I also have BPD. So sometimes I can be really mean. Like I can be like the sweetest, or then like the next day I'm like a freaking devil and I'm horrible to him and I don't mean to. But and he just kind of he just deals with it, I guess. I mean, he has his own challenges too, so we kind of just like be there for each other. Like when he has an episode and I have an episode, it's a lot of work, And
It is. It is.
yeah.
I mean, for somebody to stay with you and be patient and go through it, and that's pretty special.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, let's say, whoever can't deal with it, you just know right then and there they're just not the one, because true love is someone who would go through like everything.
Yeah.
Like no matter what. Of course, there's some like exceptions, like if someone just cheats on you like 5 times, that's a whole different story. You know what I mean? Like there's some rare
I
case.
do.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, I do. I was married once before, and she left me because she said I wasn't fun anymore.
You weren't fun?
Yeah, I wasn't fun anymore. So what had happened is I slid into a depression, and she said I wasn't fun anymore. But she was also having an affair, so I worked through that. But that was, I mean, talk about smacking somebody when they're down. And
Tell me about it.
Yeah, I do have a dating joke. Would you be interested in hearing it?
I always want to hear jokes from you. You're hilarious. Go for it.
Yeah. And I want to say something, viewers, if anybody's got an issue with some of the jokes and stuff, and you hear from them, I mean, the issue is, with them, it's not you, it's not me. We live it, we see it, we understand it, and we can find the humor in it, and it's okay. And we're not making fun of anybody. But like, dating is hard when you've got bipolar disorder. I mean, when do you tell the person? You tell them on the first date, it's maybe too soon, or you tell them on the third date and that's too late, so maybe the second date. So I decided there should be a dating service for people with a mental illness. I can see the postings now. Paranoid white male seeks paranoid white female to share compound in Idaho.
Wait, you share what and what?
Compound in Idaho.
I think you said deny a hoe.
Yeah,
that's what I heard.
That's a good one.
I was like, deny a hoe.
And then paranoid white female seeks paranoid male to share compound, with no government connections. And then my favorite is dual personality female seeks dual personality male for double dates.
Honestly, that should. Well, I think of like an app to connect people that struggle with the same mental illness so they don't feel alone. Like I've had so many of these like mental health app concepts in my brain, but actually, I come to think about it, I always have all these ideas, and I'm pretty sure I'm probably like going through hypomania stage. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And sometimes people have to like calm me down, and I don't even realize, like, I try my best. Sometimes I can't tell if it's my ambition or a manic. Like honestly, it's kind of the craziest thing and saddest thing too, though, is that when you're like hypomanic and such, like you can't tell if you're actually happy and doing well or if you are manic.
Yeah.
Don't you just hate that?
So I do, and I have to check with myself, and you can't tell. It's so hard because you don't know. And it's, these things are happening, and, we can't control them. People, people think you can control it or whatever, and you got medication. But, takes over your mind, and it's not something we can choose. Okay, I'm going to stop thinking now. It
Yeah.
doesn't work that way. I've tried meditation. I've meditated for a long time, but when I'm manic or when my anxiety is going and I sit down to meditate, just have quiet, my mind's racing. People say take a deep breath and let it out slowly, and I can do all that. So mind's racing. There's no peace of mind. You can't slow it down.
Yeah.
You just can't. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I
Do you find
totally get that.
do you find I've found that in working, I work with a lot of folks who have mental health challenges and family members and others. But do you find I've found that I can see it, people can see it in our eyes. I can see it in someone's eyes. It's, just this recognition, just this slight, whatever it is that I can see when someone gets some mental health issue going on, whether it's a mild depression or it's a mania or it's just, I can see it. I know people can see it in my eyes too.
Yeah,
And I could be as
Mhm.
happy as can be or as sad as can be or whatever. But I spent so much time pretending to be okay. Talk
Mhm.
about imposter syndrome. And I tried so hard I just pretended I was okay. And I wasn't. And I know people could look at my eyes and see it. Yeah. But
Yeah.
I think fellow travelers, people with bipolar disorder or anxiety or depression, I think we can see it in each other. It's not overt, it's just there and we recognize it. And,
Yeah, they do say that you can see in the eyes, like if you're like dead inside. Like
yeah,
there's times where I'll be going through and like having a mental breakdown, just going through it, and then I'll look in the mirror right after and you can see the eyes. And it's
yep,
like I look
yep,
like I'm dead. And it was
yep,
actually horrifying. It's
yep,
it's scary. And they say like, well, your eyes are like the window to your soul, is what
yep.
they say. It's true. It's really true. And did you know that the black in your eye is actually a real hole to the back of your optic nerve?
I did not know that. No.
Yeah, so I have eye problems, right? I have a glaucoma in my right eye. So,
Mm,
I'm very fixated on like learning things because anxiety and I just have a really scary disease. So, one night I was like up late at night and I was looking at YouTube videos like education about the eyeball, and it was first saying about like obviously you need light to see anything because obviously if you turn off the light everything's black, and it's because the light sends a signal to your brain to see what's in front of you. And then they were showing like an eyeball, like how the reason it's black, right, is because the inside of your head is pitch
mm.
black,
Wow.
right?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so
Wow.
crazy. And if
That
you think
is.
about it, I think that like I guess eye doctors you can really like put like a I don't know, I guess like a needle thing through. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that. I'm not educated enough to even keep going with that conversation. But yeah, I learned that and I'm like that actually makes a lot of sense. And then if your optic nerve is all like messed up like mine, you can't light doesn't go in properly. So that's why it's like if I close my eye here, right?
Yeah.
Right here, it's like black for me. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
here I see a little bit of what's in front of me, but that's because it's like the nerves on my optic nerve are pretty much dying. Well, I'm on medication now, so it should help with that to slow it down. But yeah, so pretty much if it's like the actual optic nerve is damaged, then it can't like retrieve the light. And that's what causes like the blindness. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. And I was just super fixated. I'm like honestly one of those people that are in the doctor's office and ask a million and one things because it helps my anxiety to be
Oh,
educated.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I hate like not being in the know. It like
Yeah.
it gives me so much like I also have this thing of control. And obviously I can control what I'm going through. I mean, I got to do what the doctor says. Like I take my meds for the eye drops every single day. I do what I got to do, but if things are out of my control, I got to just accept it and just try to just be thankful my left eye's good. This one question is directed towards the listeners. How can someone begin to incorporate humor into their healing journey, even if they're not like interested in like performing?
Yeah. Couple different things. One is just keep in mind to say, where can I find the humor in that? Just that one step, that one question makes a difference. There's a comic who I took a comic class from. His name's David Grenier. He's in Vancouver, BC, and he has Stand Up for Mental Health. So you can go to standupformentalhealth.com, and there's lots of videos of people telling their stories, one joke at a time. I'm going to plug my books because the OMG That's Me 3 is a story about 6 people who went through the comedy class and found humor, and it transformed them, changed their lives.
Mhm.
And then the OMG That's Me, the original, if anyone wants to know what it's really like to live with a mental illness, that's the book. Won awards, sold over 20,000 copies, self-published, sold over 20,000 copies. Most common comment is, OMG, that's me. You're telling my story. I don't feel so alone now. So like you reading it, you would say, oh yeah, because I talk about that time not being able to get out of bed, or other things, and it's very relatable. And then people give it to their family members or their significant other to read it so they understand what's actually happening. So I wanted to throw those two in there because I'm terrible at promoting, and I don't make any money on them to speak of, but they do make a difference in people's lives. They're both out now on audiobook, and the audiobooks are outselling the paperbacks.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So they're out on audiobook. Yeah. So, David Grenier, Stand Up for Mental Health. Ask yourself, where can I find the humor in that? If anybody wants to find me on Facebook and message me or whatever, got an idea for something, I can help them come up with a joke. And if you, Justine, want to put something, find a little, you're thinking the right things and going the right directions. I want you seeing funny, and with the Instagram posts and with the clothing and stuff like that. And so if you want to explore some other avenues towards comedy, towards humor, towards coming up with things for your clothing line, happy to do that. I've lived long, people with bipolar disorder tend to, die earlier than the general population. And so I've kind of made it through my dark days in the last years and lived long enough that, the purpose is to help other people know what it's like to live with mental illness, make a difference, shatter the stigma, one joke at a time. Things do get better over time. Things do get better.
Yeah, you're definitely right that there's, except just performing, there's other ways you could, have that outlet and be funny. Like you said, the book, my clothing line, the videos and such. So there's so many ways of doing that. And then I'll make sure to put your Facebook link in the actual description. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on here. I really do appreciate you.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I think it's, what you're doing is great stuff, and you're making a difference in people's lives. And I can see that you're good at what you do. And so I'm really happy for that. And if you do get any negative comments or things like that, just, the issue's with them, not with you, not with us.
Yeah.
We who live with a mental health challenge, we get it, and we know what it's about. Anybody that, the people that complain, the people that don't like it, those are not people that live with a mental health challenge. Those aren't family members. Those are other people that sometimes are looking to be offended.
Yeah, true. Makes sense.
All right.
It's also projecting as well.
Very much so.
Oh,
Very
yeah.
much so. Yeah. Hey, great. Thank you so much. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you, Dave, for being on here. Thank you for everyone who's listening. I hope you have a great day, and stay tuned for next week's episode.